For the past month, all that you'd have heard in the news is the presidential elections. It's been a complicated process, but it's finally over, and Ramnath Kovind is going to move into the glorious Rashtrapati Bhavan tomorrow, while Pranab Mukherjee will move out as the 13th president. But apart from the politics of who allied with who during the presidential elections, what happens now for the next 5 years? Is the president's role really that crucial, or is it just more or less a rubber stamp? We'll be taking questions from Agenda student audience who are here with us, and our experts joining us today to talk about this, take these questions, because remember, there have been so many crucial junctures in our politics, in the nation's agenda, that the president plays a role in. We'll talk about that. In studio, we have Professor S. Irfan Habib. He's an author and a historian. We also have Gopal Shankar Narayan. He is a constitutional law expert. And we also have T. Praveen. He's a student leader and a member of BAPSA, which is an Ambedkar student organization. So a nice panel to give us perspective on that. Before we do that, it's the day before. In just about half an hour from now, you're going to hear Pranab Mukherjee's last speech as president. It's been interesting. I just want to point out, before we speak to our student audience, before we speak to our experts, I just want to point out just a recap of the last 5 years. While you see some of the pictures of Pranab Mukherjee and Ramnath Kovind, just what many people have pointed out has been Pranab Mukherjee's legacy. One of the first things that Pranab Mukherjee did when he came into office was that he dropped his title. He said that I don't want to be known as Your Excellency anymore. Honorable President is good enough. So that was interesting. That went a long way, and it fit in with the times of saying that the VIP status and Rashtrapati Bhavan was changing. He also made the Rashtrapati Bhavan a lot more accessible. Lots of artists, writers came in and stayed over there. One of the other things that became very controversial, though, is that he endorsed the government dismissal in Uttarakhand and Arunachal Pradesh, both of which were slammed and criticized by the Supreme Court. So that was the blot perhaps in the 5 years that happened. He also rejected 30 mercy pleas of death row convicts. In fact, Afzal Guru and Ajmal Kasab hangings took place during President Pranab Mukherjee's tenure. Remember, Pratibha Patil's was a lot different. She, on the other hand, accepted a lot of mercy petitions as well. So this is just some of the things that happened last 5 years. In fact, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has just released a blog, and which is full of praise for Pranab Mukherjee. I can just want to read out some of the bits to you, where he says, even in opposition, he was never an obstructionist. He favored using parliament for larger national interests. He speaks like an amicus curiae, a friend of the house rather than a party leader. And what he focuses on is his natural ability to rise above partisan arguments. So very, very interesting. The government saying, really praising Pranab Mukherjee and saying how he handled 2 governments in his tenure quite well. I just want to take that to our panel once before we take a lot of the questions from our student leaders, because the question is, what kind? Because if you look at the presidency from Pratibha Patil, from APJ Abdul Kalam to Pratibha Patil to then Pranab Mukherjee, they have made an effort in changing it, to change Rashtrapati Bhavan. That's why APJ President Kalam had a lot of children in Rashtrapati Bhavan, and even Pranab Mukherjee wanted to change that. What would you say out of all of that, as Pranab Mukherjee exits now? He's going to speak in a short while from now. For you, sir, what do you think was most significant? Are you as rosy about it as the government is being now?
You see, I don't see anything very significant happening, during these 5 years, except for things you have pointed out. He opened up the Rashtrapati Bhavan for lots of creative people, and opened Rashtrapati Bhavan for generally for people in general, which was not the case earlier. Anyway, that is something good. But as a president of India and as a politician who spent almost 43 years in the parliament and almost 39 years as a minister in different departments. He should have been little more politically savvy, you know, when engaging with the issues which came up. Some of them were very important ones. One can say that as president, he had his limitations.
He should have engaged much more. So you're saying his statements from time to time, where he talked about intolerance, his speech yesterday has also been highlighted by the fact that he criticized the government on bringing in too many ordinances. You're not impressed with that?
He did that. You see, he spoke in two voices. One is a voice he spoke for the people, which was his natural being, because he had been a politician and he has been saying all these things. His commitment to all those values which he cherished all his life, we need to respect that, of course. But as a politician, one can say he kept his association with the ruling dispensation intact. That's why you have Arun Jaitley saying all those good things about him.
Yes.
You know, so he did that. He played a very, very safe sort of game.
Yeah.
He spoke his mind, which you appreciate, I appreciate, of course. But he kept to the script of the government.
Now, Gopal Shankar Narayan, where I want to ask you is, and perhaps that is something that we as reporters see a lot, and that's where we look to you for clarity, is when you look at the Constitution, everyone says the president plays a really crucial role. And yes, he's meant to be the one, you know, bringing in checks and balances to the government. But when we look at the two things, the dismissal of the two state governments which took place, could the president have done something more, or was he bound by what the?
Well, in the Westminster sort of government that we have in India, and as has been interpreted very often by the Supreme Court, there isn't much elbow room available to the president, especially in things like ordinances, passing of laws, etc. He is pretty much bound by what the government tells him, aid and advice of his ministers. So the ministers advise him that, look, give assent to this. He has to give assent. If he doesn't give his assent, what he can do is send it back for one reconsideration. So once that comes back to him, then he's pretty much bound. So in things like that, and in virtually every other exercise of power, where there is any substantial power, it is pretty much binding as far as what the ministers tell him. But moving away a little from that, I heard just now on your program about the speech given by the President's Secretary, how 11,000 trees were planted in Rashtrapati Bhavan, there was a wetland that was created, etc. I think it's about time that our presidents realize they're not presidents of Rashtrapati Bhavan, they're presidents of India.
Okay.
So I would, because the oath which is laid down for the President of India, and people don't pay enough attention to this, is not given in the schedule to the Constitution, which is at the end for MPs, MLAs, judges of the Supreme Court, etc. It's there. This is in Article 60 of the Constitution, specifically laid down, and he swears that he is going to serve the people of India, right? Now, serving the people of India requires more than planting 11,000 trees in what is a presidential home.
But that was, okay, there was just one small bit of it, wasn't it?
No, that is one small bit of it. But what I'm saying is, you know, passing ordinances, things like that, not enough. Now, when we have a
give me an instance where you.
I'll tell you. There's a catalogued instance, including on the JNU campus. There are instances of excess. There's instances of excess with cows, for example. If the president just stepped out, gave a speech to the national media saying, "Look, I condemn this," immediately, it would send out a very strong message, because it's his government at the end of the day.
Are there precedents?
The problem is that we have had, let me tell you, virtually after Rajendra Prasad, we have had mediocre presidents till today. I think Dr. Kalam was an exception, and I think it was an exception because he wasn't a career politician.
Right.
And he made quite a bit of it, that he, I mean, being a nuclear physicist, to come out and become a president like that.
And I'll get the students to react to this. So you're saying, him saying from speeches, because they were references, and we are meant to, as political reporters, we are, our orientation is that we hear the subtle references to intolerance, and that is supposed to be enough. Because the president is supposed to be in moderation and, well, but you're saying it shouldn't be like that.
I don't think so. In this age of social media, where things are being picked up almost on a minute-by-minute basis, the president's silence, as was the case with the Prime Minister's silence, as was the case with the President Trump's silence, the minute something which is against the Constitution and the laws are happening on the road, on the streets outside, you are obliged under the Constitution to step in and say...
You're obliged under the Constitution?
Yes.
Do you all want to react to that?
See, President himself uses his handle, Twitter handle, to say lots of things, which I see you also.
Well, it's his office does.
Whatever office does, obviously office does, but he can of course use his office to say things he wanted to say.
So the future, the change that you are both looking for in the president is a new age president who is tweeting or in other ways responding and sending out real-time press releases, responding to the current situation.
Yeah, travel the country, go to places of conflict.
Praveen, I want to bring you in over here because Gopal mentioned the universities, and we saw the president initially, his few initial statements that came out, he mentioned a lot about universities, and you know, his pet project at that time, JNU hadn't happened. His pet project at that time was, why aren't they international levels of institutions? Why aren't they world class enough? So would you also agree with the other panelists?
So before answering this question, let me pick up on from where he left.
Yeah.
So we had this president called Dr. K.R. Narayan. So in his time, there was an atrocity in Bihar, and this atrocity is called Bate Batane Tola massacre. It was an atrocity on the Dalits in Bihar. Soon after that atrocity, the then president K.R. Narayan said that it is a national shame, and all the media had gone, and a lot of people from the civil society, from the activist groups, and as well as the political parties had gone to that places and they have worked. But so far, natural justice was not delivered. Even when the Supreme Court judgment came in 2013 or in September 2013, that time, we could see that there was no justice to them. However, the president reflected on that.
Right. And how soon after? Sorry, time limit becomes very interesting over here.
So therefore, the point what I'm trying to make is, as he already mentioned, the president fares. The president doesn't fare like any other MP or any other minister. He fares according to an article in the Constitution, and wherein he says that he is the people's president. So therefore, if you evaluate Pranab Mukherjee for the last 5 years, from 2012 to 2017, what has happened in the last 5 years? If you evaluate the last 5 years, will you talk about the economy? Will you talk about the culture? Will you talk about the education? Will you talk about the science and technology? Will you talk about the politics, or what do you want to talk about? Overall, what has been dominating in the country ever since NDA government came into power, we see a rise of new culture. And what is this new culture? This new culture is not trying to accommodate everybody. This new culture is just trying to divide everybody in the society.